In a matter of hours, for the first time since President Biden took office, senior members of his administration will hold face-to-face talks with the Chinese delegation about the two nations' path forward. The Wall Street Journal reporting tonight that China plans to ask the U.S. to roll back Trump policies in Alaska meeting, specifically dropping the sanctions and restrictions on Chinese entities and individuals put into place by the Trump administration. Let's bring in Republican Senator from Arkansas, Tom Cotton, to talk about what he's watching for at the summit. Senator, welcome back. Good to have you.
Good to be on with you, Shannon. Thank you.
So the Wall Street Journal article also quotes Daniel Russell, former Obama State Department official, saying this: China feels that it has the wind at its back, that the East is rising and the West is fading, and that's how they come to the table. Senator, what do you think?
Well, if that's their attitude, we need to disabuse them of that attitude at this summit in Alaska. I hope we roll out the unwelcome mat and send them home very disappointed if they're looking for relief from tariffs and sanctions and some of the other policies that were put in place over the last 4 years to confront China and punish them for their depredations against America's interests. If, however, the Biden administration agrees to start rolling back some of those sanctions, to start removing some of those tariffs, we will know that Joe Biden and the Democrats want to go back to business as usual against our #1 competitor in the world, a country that is responsible for stealing millions of American jobs and threatening our national security and oppressing and persecuting their own people.
How do you respond to those who are critics of the Trump administration, who say that he and the administration blew up important international relationships around the world, and that we didn't really make any progress in relations in pushing back on China under the last 4 years? How do you respond?
Well, that's not the case at all. If anything, President Trump helped realign the political consensus in America to recognize China is a serious and grave threat. And then around the world, we have so many partners who want to work with us, Shannon, and have been grateful that America has finally gotten more aggressive in confronting China. Those are the great nations of the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean, like India and Australia and Japan, South Korea, to smaller countries all around the world who don't want to be bribed by China and become essentially vassal states through debt diplomacy or have their communication networks infiltrated. Countries around the world recognize that China is a threat to their interests, but they need America to lead. That's what we've done for the last 4 years. I hope that's what we continue to do.
That big meeting tomorrow. So let's turn back here domestically. The Equality Act is something that is going to be working its way through the Senate. And there's been a lot of back and forth on this. If you question it, then you are a bigot and that you are undermining and supporting discrimination against the LGBTQ community. The Washington Post says this: the Equality Act matches Americans' fast-moving rejection of discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. More than 6 in 10 Americans say business owners should not be allowed to refuse services to LGBTQ people on the basis of religion. Is that an accurate portrayal of the Equality Act as you see it?
No, Shannon, this is a radical proposal. Of course, Americans think that everyone should be treated with dignity and respect, but they also want to respect the religious freedom of all Americans, and they want to uphold what until just yesterday seemed to be pretty common sense notions. Look, more than 20% of the largest charities in America are faith-based. More than $1 trillion of social goods are performed by those charities. But the Equality Act would threaten them all. Just to give you a few examples, Shannon, if you run a battered women's shelter and a man shows up and said he wants to be admitted in there to a place where women are hiding from abusive, violent boyfriends and husbands, you might be sued. You might lose your government contracts. Or churches and Christian schools and hospitals, again, could lose their tax-exempt status or be sued by Joe Biden's Department of Justice. Or, if you want a farcical but very real example, notorious Democratic mega donor and serial sexual predator Harvey Weinstein could transition to being a woman tomorrow, and the Equality Act would require the government to put him in a women's prison. This is the height of folly. We need to respect the rights of all Americans while continuing to treat all Americans with dignity and respect, but we shouldn't impose these kind of radical laws on our society.
That debate continues. Meanwhile, quickly, we reported a little bit earlier about this back and forth with the climate czar, former Secretary John Kerry, being photographed by a passenger on a commercial flight today with his mask off. Mr. Kerry says it would have been only momentarily. This passenger says, no, it was at least 5 minutes. We're being asked, all of us as Americans, to do things that feel inconvenient sometimes and aren't exactly what we want to do. But again and again, we have leaders who are out there maybe not obeying the same rules.
Well, I guess we can say it's better that John Kerry finally decided to fly commercial as opposed to jetting around in Gulf Streams all over the world while he's trying to supposedly solve the climate crisis, Shannon. But yes, leaders should try to set a good example if they're going to impose rules on the American people to try to follow those rules as well. Now, look, we can show grace as well and recognize that everyone is struggling at times to keep their mask on or maybe forget to put it up. I don't know all the circumstances here, but John Kerry has a long record of imposing one set of rules on Americans and not following those rules, as is evidenced by his jet setting around the world to try to save it from climate change when he's burning more carbon than one person does in an entire year.
I got to admit, I was surprised he was on a commercial flight. But listen, there are people there who saw him. All of us all the time are being watched. So we have to behave ourselves. Senator Cotton, great to see you.
Great to see you, Shannon. Thank you.